If you've got an existing brick wall and you want to maybe gain some privacy from your neighbours, I'm going to show you in this video how you can build a timber fence topper on top of your brick wall. This is a project you can do yourself. It's DIY-able. During this video, I'm going to show you some tips on how to get it done. Let's get into it. We're building a fence topper much the same proportions as the brick wall. So if the bricks are 110 millimeters, what I've done is built a 70 millimeter frame. By the time we add the palings on each side, we've sort of come out to sort of brick proportions. So it looks balanced, it looks intentional. So I'll show you how to build a frame. We're building a frame to hold the fence palings on. So imagine it's like building the frame of a house. We're going to have a bottom plate, we're going to have our studs, and then we're going to have a top plate. The reason we've made it this size is because it will perfectly fit. See if I can balance these all together. It'll perfectly fit 3 palings. That'll give it a really good finished look. How we come up with that measurement: measure your palings, and that's 300 millimeters. So our frame needs to be 300 millimeters. To find your stud length, just take that 30 millimeters and that 30 millimeters off. So 300 minus 60 is going to be 240. So that's 240 for your stud height. Now we're going to need to put studs wherever we want fixings for these palings. So we'll obviously need one at the start. 1805 is going to be the center of our next stud. These palings and the next ones are going to share this stud, and then we'll put one in the middle. Putting one in the middle helps support it, keeps it nice and straight, and will stop the palings warping when they dry out in the sun. Start with a nice square end to your timber. So just trim off that factory end. Now we need to make some studs for this frame. 240. Mark that square and which side you want the saw blade. We're going to start with the bottom plate, and that'll be sitting on top of the brick wall like that. Our studs will come up from there. We're going to use these marks here now to pre-nail through that side. So essentially, this is the bottom of the bottom plate. Using those marks that we measured out before, just put a piece of wood underneath there so you don't damage the floor. Now line the studs up with the bottom plate. Try and keep it flush on the sides and at the end there. And work your way along. Okay, so now we've got our bottom plate made and our studs. We're going to go and attach it to the wall like this. And I'll show you how to drill into the brickwork. This wall's got a bit of a bend in it, but we'll just go a relatively straight line right through the middle. Once we get this centered, maybe every 1.5 of these studs, we'll put a masonry bolt into the brickwork. So to start with, I'm getting the fence nice and flush with the end of this brick fence here and centered on the wall. Drilling into bricks can sometimes crack them. There is a method though. So to make sure we're drilling through the timber into sort of a relatively strong part of the brick, I'm going to measure in 100 millimeters from the end of the brick mark that on top of the timber, and that's where I'm going to aim to drill. Hopefully it hits that strong part of the brick. Alright, so same thing again, we're going to measure about 95, 100 mil in from the edge of the brick and centre. You go twice the thickness of the timber for your masonry screw or your masonry bolt. Now if you miss and you hit something soft in the brick like the old cement or maybe the brick cracks, just go to the next brick, measure that same 95 to 100 mil in, try and get into a thick bit of the brick. It doesn't matter if you've got an extra hole in your timber and a cracked brick. Now that we've got those masonry bolts in, the bottom plate's all bolted down to the bricks, we can set the top plate on. So we want to make sure that all of these studs are nice and plumb, which means straight up and down. So you get your square on the bottom plate and mark where it sits on the top plate. Then you know where straight up and down is for your stud and you can nail it off there. Hold both sides and you can tell whether it's nice and flush there or whether it's sticking out one way or the other. Check before we finish nailing it. Perfect. Oops. Hit the nail. Now we get to put up some palings. We can just screw it straight away in the middle, same trick as before. Well, not same trick, same tip as before. Use screws that are twice the length of your timber. These middle ones we can screw in without any pilot holes, because when it's in the middle of the timber, it's less likely to split. When we get to the ends though, we need to pre-drill the screw holes because we're so close to that end grain. It's as the screw forces its way in there, it'll split the grain. So if we do that, that'll keep us out of trouble. These are countersunk screws, so screw them in so that the head then just disappears into the timber a little bit. See how there's a bit of a gap showing at this end? It's just because these paling boards, they're not always dead straight. Before we screw it in, we'll just pull it down like that. But remembering to pilot some holes near that end grain. Should have two drills set up. One with the screwdriver bit and one with the drill bit. That would make sense. Perfect. And same at the other end, we'll need to pull this down before we screw it. Just to take that bow or that warp out of the timber. As you go, just make sure you're lining up these ends that are going to join together. It just looks nicer. A nice little touch too is if you can keep your screw lines dead straight. Always looks a lot nicer. Galvanized screws, countersunk head for treated timber, twice the length of our palings, so 16mm palings. You'd want at least a 32mm screw. These are 40s. By screwing it and not nailing it, you end up really cranking back the timber, making sure it's dead flat there, and when the timber dries out a bit, it'll shrink back, and the screws, the thread on the screws will still hold it back really snug to that frame, and it'll minimize the amount of warping and twisting that those palings will do. You don't seem to get that sort of protection from warping with nails. Okay, on to the next section. Perfect example of how it doesn't matter if you miss the brick. So second to last drill out of this whole fence, and see if you can look right over here. As I was drilling through, the masonry bit has gone straight through that soft bit of mortar. So what I've done is I've just moved and re-drilled, what's that, about 40mm away, and we've gone there into a solid bit. So if you do miss the brick or end up in a bit of mortar or something soft, you can just move it across and re-drill it, and just keep doing that until you get into a solid piece of brick. Now that's going to be a nice fixing once we get that in there. Second to last hole. It's looking good. It's all done. Now there is one more reason that we wanted to build this fence a little higher, and that's because in New South Wales, we're in Australia, is that pool needs to be certified. And to do that, we're using a boundary fence as a pool fence. It needs to be 1.8 meters high with no climbable areas, like no places where you can get a foothold in. You've got to check out your country, state laws, find out what you need to do for pool compliance. Building your brick fence higher using a fence topper is another way of getting around it. Be nice when that's full. If you found this video helpful at all, give it a thumbs up. I appreciate that. I'll see you in the next video.